The open-world genre has adapted incredibly well to a variety of genres, from action RPGs like The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt to renowned FPS games like Fallout. But one specific genre that is practically synonymous with the name open world is the zombie genre. Although some have been successful, others have made a big mistake when mixing zombies with an open world, so I decided to save myself the frustration and selected the best open-world zombie games. Though there had been plenty of great zombie games before the release of Dying Light, few had found ways to successfully bring an Undead outbreak to the open-world genre. As a result, Dying Light broke a lot of new ground and went on to serve as something of a blueprint for many future open-world zombie games. One of the things that make Dying Light such a great zombie survival game is the threat that some of its zombies pose. Rather than the slow, ambling creatures found in many other Undead adventures, the game's infected can come at players pretty fast, particularly at night. This forces them to remain on their toes at all times and encourages the use of the game's fantastic parkour system. Techland built on the runaway, shuffle away. The success of Dead Island with Dying Light, another open-world zombie game kitted out with customizable melee weapons and 4-player co-op. Then, the studio, eventually, gave us Dying Light 2, and we couldn't be happier. The excellent parkour system sets Dying Light 2 apart from its rivals. While this open-world RPG game is not without its problems, it easily earns a place as one of the best zombie games of the past year. Like its survivors in a post-outbreak world, Dying Light 2 is a scavenger. Its map icons and diversions are ripped from the Ubisoft formula. The parkour is nicked from Mirror's Edge, but the clambering informs every other aspect of the game, turning this into an explorative, emergent adventure. For best results, ignore the more repetitive missions and take to the rooftops built with vertical meandering in mind. The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners is an open-world game in the same way that Pokemon Legends, Arceus is. This is to say that it isn't, really, though does boast sections that could be described as being open world. For those who enjoy zombie survival games though, it's something of a must-play, as the VR carnage that it's able to provide really is top-notch. Saints and Sinners throws players in at the deep end, often surrounding them with waves of terrifying zombies and forcing them to fight for their lives. The game also allows for a more stealthy approach at times, which can be as exhilarating as it is unnerving. With a sequel looming large on the horizon, those set up for VR would be foolish not to check it out, particularly if they're fans of the show. Those who saw The Day Before's rise and immediate fall will likely still be itching for a zombie survival game of sorts, and luckily, there is always DayZ to pick up the pieces. It may have had its early access woes back in the day, but it's at least a complete package. You will still endure that nervy survival phase, flitting from the greenhouse to the gas station to gather gear and avoid conflict. DayZ is one of those simulation games where the ravenous undead is not what haunts your every step. You will still have those Cormac McCarthy moments on the road, scanning a stranger for clues about their intentions. Once you are subsisting on soda and scraps, however, DayZ opens up. That greenhouse becomes a proper farming plot. It is enough to keep you and passing traders alive. Banditry is no longer DayZ's default. There is potential for trading centers, large-scale farms, and stable villages. Unfortunately, we are a few updates away from the post-societal civilized dream, and over time, the bugs and performance issues can nibble away at your enthusiasm. But DayZ is not just a survival sim anymore, it's also a living sim. Set in a post-apocalyptic future following a nuclear war, 7 Days to Die's premise is not too dissimilar to that of the Fallout universe. Where it differs, however, is the emphasis that it places on survival, with players having to start from scratch if they perish at the hands, or teeth, of the game's zombie hordes. Though the game didn't quite live up to some of the promises made during its successful Kickstarter campaign, it's still a lot of fun to play. Nighttime can be particularly enjoyable due to how daunting everything feels, although playing with friends can make survival a lot more manageable. At least until the blood moon occurs on the 7th day, anyway. Night of the Dead is a zombie wave survival game, currently in early access, so while the story is a bit light, we're bound to see some changes to the game as it progresses through development. Players take the role of a young woman named Lucy who's been part of a scientific experiment and is trapped on an island and left to die. To make matters worse, you find yourself not the only thing inhabiting this island. How'd you like to meet some undead? Players will have to immediately begin exploring to find new resources and weapons to keep themselves alive. There are also structures that players can build as defensive measures against the hordes, but ultimately, you'll need to go beyond your comfort zone and explore the open island. The end goal is to find the necessary equipment to create an SOS message to get off the island. Again, it's an early access title, but it does feature some cooperative gameplay modes. If you're looking for a compelling story, you're better served by the original State of Decay. However, the sequel does an admirable job of fleshing out the first game systems to make for a more satisfying open-world game. Playing like an RPG, State of Decay 2 has a simple yet satisfying core loop. You will pick a protagonist from your community of survivors and take them out into the wild to find the necessary food, fuel, or drugs to keep the rest alive. Once they collapse into bed back home, or under the blows of the undead, you can take control of another character from your base with their background, personality, and combat abilities. Whenever you let another stranger into your growing base, you let in another playable character, another new story to write a middle and an end to. It's been an age since we've heard about State of Decay 3, so it's pretty safe to assume it's not out anytime soon. Give our State of Decay 2 review a read to see what Harry Shepard thought about the game. Unturned is a free-to-play title, so nothing is stopping you from trying it out right this second. The game is a bit simplistic, so think of your typical voxel game that plays out similar to DayZ or other online multiplayer-focused zombie survival titles. You're left in a world that's filled with undead, and to survive, players will need to scavenge for resources that can be used to aid you throughout your journey. There are also NPCs that can give players quests or further the game's storyline. As mentioned, this game is available online so you can connect with friends and go through the title together. However, not every player is friendly. Yes, Unturned includes a PvP mode. You'll even find roleplay servers that encourage players to stay in character as they create their own post-apocalyptic story. Overall, it's a more lighthearted game worth giving a try. After all, it won't cost you a dime. Developed by the same team behind the Zombie Army trilogy, Strange Brigade took quite a few people by surprise when it was released in 2018. Rather than the spiritual successor to Zombie Army that many had expected, the game plays a lot more like Left 4 Dead, although this isn't necessarily a bad thing. The 1930s setting is interesting and makes a refreshing change from the dark backstreets and abandoned research facilities that typically host these kinds of games. The co-op elements also work incredibly well, although the narrative can at times feel a lot more B-movie than it does AA title. For those more interested in gameplay, though, it's a solid pick. Scum is a multiplayer online survival game in which a group of prisoners are dropped into a location and must attempt to survive. The winner gets a chance of freedom, and each match can include up to 64 players. Still in early access, the game is being given seasonal updates, and the developers continue to provide players with new content. Players will have to work at improving your character's skills, and there are plenty of new areas to explore, equipment to gather, players to battle against, and other hostile hazards such as mindless zombies. It can be quite a challenging survival game, so if you want something competitive, this might be worth picking up. Red Dead Redemption: Undead Nightmare is still considered one of the best DLC expansions ever released for a video game. Other developers copied Rockstar because of it, like Sucker Punch Productions and United Front Games making Halloween DLC for Infamous and Sleeping Dogs respectively. Neither really compares to Undead Nightmare, though. Most of the map from the original game is present in the DLC, but things have gone haywire for old John Marsden. Zombies aren't the only thing that will get in his way either, and players will need the best set of guns they can get their hands on in order to survive. Best of all, it's backward compatible with Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles and is incredibly funny to boot. Days Gone is a zombie game for those who feel that experiences such as Dead Rising need a more open-world focus. It starts rather slowly, with the motorcycle-riding protagonist scavenging from ravaged roads of the Cascade region, but soon revs up to become a rather intense experience. While most zombie games lose their thread as soon as you find a vehicle, the freakers in Days Gone are more inclined to recklessly leap at you as you speed along the debris-ridden roads, and before too long, you'll have to contend with hordes of zombified humans and animals. If that doesn't sell you, how about the prospect of fending off zombie bears? Unlike the PlayStation 4 version, which struggled with bugs at launch, our Days Gone review explains how much better the PC version is due to the quality of life tweaks the game has received. When one thinks of open-world games, the more recent Fallout titles are usually some of the first to spring to mind, even if the NPCs that reside in them are a little bit weird. Fallout 3 is where the series took a turn from its top-down perspective and helped to lay much of the groundwork for future entries in the series. Many might not consider it to be a zombie game in the traditional sense, but it is, in a way. Ghouls, the game's zombie-like mutants, and other infected creatures roam the wastelands. It's a horrifying look at the apocalypse but should feel like home for those looking for some scintillating zombie action. Developer Insomniac Games turned heads with the announcement of Sunset Overdrive back in 2014. An original IP from the Ratchet & Clank studio, it remains one of the decade's most fun open-world parkour experiences. After the rushed fizzy drink from the soda company Fizco turns the populace of Sunset CTY into terrifying mutants, the player must swoop in to save the day. The city's vibrant open world awaits exploration via rail grinding, wall running, and bouncing. The waves of OD have overrun the city to wreak havoc, so their numbers must be quelled with bizarre weaponry. From a teddy bear grenade launcher to a garden gnome acid sprinkler, all of these fit the comic-esque visuals of the game. Paired with the frantic pace of cathartic gameplay, it's hard not to dive into a zen-like state. There's nothing else like it out there. Dead Island is an open-world game, but one that is a bit more segmented than some of its contemporaries. It's like getting lost in a city landscape, albeit with lots of tropical nature surrounding it. It is a pure zombie game at heart though, and, like Fallout 3, is full of traditional RPG elements. The game was a bit broken when it launched on the PS3 and Xbox 360 back in 2011, but it has now been patched. There's also a collection out on last-gen consoles making it a lot easier to get hold of, since it is usually on sale digitally, and because it is now more than a decade old, now would be a good time to try it out. Capcom's wacky zombie series has always lived under the shadow of the Japanese publisher's more prominent names, like Resident Evil, yet it has carved out its niche, which has been successful enough for the publisher to invest in half a dozen installments. However, the 2011 reimagining of the second entry, it is considered one of the best in the series. Instead of Chuck Green, the first game's protagonist, Frank West, returns to face the undead terror. With his goal of revitalizing his photojournalism career, Frank steps into the infested Fortune City to prove his worth. Gameplay is the same as Dead Rising 2 with some quality-of-life improvements. Players must still scour the open-world locales for zombrex to prevent Frank's zombie infection from progressing. The key highlight is the gameplay, where players can pick up most objects in the environment and even fuse them to create crazy weapon combos to deal with zombie hordes. SurrounDead takes you to a world that has been in the zombie apocalypse for 5 years now. That's a long time to be around zombies, and it's definitely wearing on people. This includes your main character, who has gone on this journey of survival for a long time now and is now focused on just making it from one day to the next. You'll guide them through dangerous areas in order to find better items, supplies, weapons, and so on. Plus, it's not just the zombies you should fear here, it's the people. Yes, there are some who will help you, but there are others who won't. So get what you need, then lock yourself away or go to a place where you feel safe. It won't last, but it'll be something. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far and until next time, bye.